Right now, somewhere in the world, a dog is lying on a couch. Maybe its eyes are half closed. Maybe its ears twitch at a sound no human heard. Maybe it is staring at a blank wall so intensely that its owner starts to wonder what could possibly be happening inside that furry head. Food? Squirrels? Nothing at all? But what if that question is much bigger than it sounds? What if there is something looking back from behind those eyes? What if the dog does not just see the world, but experiences it? And then comes the question that becomes difficult to escape once you ask it. Does that dog know that it exists? Or are humans the only creatures in the universe that know they are alive? For decades, scientists have tried to answer this with a mirror. The idea sounds almost too simple. Place an animal in front of a mirror. While the animal cannot see, put a harmless mark somewhere on its body. A spot on its face. A colored mark near an ear. Somewhere it can only notice with the help of the reflection. Then wait. If the animal sees the reflection and treats it like another animal, it may threaten it, avoid it, display toward it, or lose interest completely. But if it sees the mark in the mirror, then reaches toward the same place on its own body, something remarkable may be happening. It may understand that the creature in the mirror is not a stranger. It is itself. This is called the mirror self-recognition test, often shortened to the mirror test or mark test. It was first developed by psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr. in 1970 during research with chimpanzees. It became one of the best-known methods for studying visual self-recognition in non-human animals. At first, the test seemed almost magical. A chimpanzee looks into a mirror. It moves. The reflection moves. It turns its head. The reflection turns too. Then it notices a mark that was not there before. Instead of reaching toward the mirror, it reaches toward its own face. For a moment, the animal appears to understand something that feels deeply human. That is me. Chimpanzees have shown this kind of mirror-guided behavior. Bonobos and orangutans have also shown evidence consistent with mirror self-recognition. Results in gorillas have been less consistent, which is important because even closely related animals do not always respond to the same test in the same way. Human toddlers usually begin to pass versions of the mark test somewhere between about 16 and 24 months of age. But then the mirror began to reveal a problem. Maybe it was not really testing self-awareness. Maybe it was testing something narrower. Maybe it was testing whether an animal understands mirrors. A dog, for example, usually does not treat a mirror like a human does. It may glance at it. It may briefly react to the strange dog on the other side. Then it may walk away and never care again. For a long time, that looked like failure. Dogs do not recognize themselves. Case closed. Except dogs do not live in a mirror world. They live in a smell world. A human walks into a park and notices the trees, the people, the colors, the paths, and the sky. A dog walks into the same park and receives a history lesson. Who passed through first? Who was afraid? Who was healthy? Who was ready to mate? Who had been there hours ago? Who had been there yesterday? To a dog, scent can carry information that our eyes never even notice. So asking a dog to recognize itself in a mirror may be like asking a human to identify themselves using only the sound of their own heartbeat. The test may not be impossible. It may simply be written in the wrong language. In 2017, dog cognition researcher Alexandra Horowitz tested an idea sometimes called an olfactory mirror. Instead of presenting dogs with a visual reflection, she gave them samples involving their own urine, their own scent altered with an additional odor, and other comparison scents. The dogs spent longer investigating their own odor when it had been modified, suggesting they noticed that something about their own scent had changed. That sounds like self-recognition, but it is not a final answer. Other researchers have argued that the olfactory result is interesting without yet proving that dogs have the same kind of self-recognition that a chimpanzee may show in a mirror. The debate itself matters because it exposes the weakness of one simple question. What does it mean to recognize yourself? Is it seeing your face and knowing it is yours? Is it recognizing your own smell? Is it knowing your own body is in the way of an object you are trying to move? Is it remembering what you know and what you do not know? Maybe self-awareness is not one ability. Maybe it is a collection of abilities that evolved in different forms across different animals. That possibility changes everything, because perhaps the right question is not, does this animal have what humans have? Perhaps the right question is, what kind of self does this animal have? A Eurasian magpie gives us one of the strangest examples. A magpie is a bird about the size of a crow. It has feathers, wings, a sharp beak, and a brain far smaller than a human brain. It is not closely related to apes, dolphins, or elephants, and yet a 2008 study reported that some magpies showed more mark-directed behavior when they could see a colored mark on their throats in a mirror. The researchers interpreted this as evidence consistent with mirror self-recognition. That result was astonishing. If correct, it suggests that an ability linked to self-recognition may not depend on having a primate brain. It may emerge through very different kinds of intelligence, but even this does not prove that a magpie sits on a branch contemplating its own existence. A mirror test can show that an animal may use a reflection to gather information about its own body. That is extraordinary. But it does not automatically reveal every thought, memory, emotion, or private experience inside that animal's mind. And this is where the mystery becomes deeper. Because recognizing yourself is not the same as thinking about your own thoughts. Humans do this all the time. You remember a name, then suddenly doubt yourself. You walk toward the kitchen, forget why you went there, and realize that you have forgotten. You read a difficult question and think, I do not know the answer. That ability has a name: metacognition, thinking about thinking, knowing when you know something, knowing when you do not. For a long time, many scientists believed this ability belonged only to humans because it seemed connected to language. How could an animal report uncertainty without saying, I am not sure? But animals do not always need words to reveal uncertainty. They can make choices. Imagine an animal facing a difficult test. One option is to answer the question. If it is right, it receives a larger reward. If it is wrong, it gets little or nothing. The other option is to decline the difficult question and take a smaller but guaranteed reward. If the animal chooses the safer option, mainly when the question is hard, that may suggest something important. It may be monitoring its uncertainty. Research with rhesus macaques has found that monkeys can use uncertainty responses adaptively across multiple task types. In one study, 4 of 5 macaques made uncertainty responses in ways that suggested they were responding to difficulty across different task domains rather than following a simple, learned rule tied to one kind of problem. Rats have also been studied using uncertainty tasks. In experiments reviewed by researchers Jonathan Crystal and Allison Foote, rats sometimes chose a smaller certain reward instead of risking an answer when memory tests became difficult. The evidence has helped build a case that at least some animals may monitor internal states connected to knowing and not knowing. But here again, science has to be careful. An animal choosing the safe option might be thinking, I do not remember. Or it might be following a complicated pattern it learned through experience. That is the central battle in animal cognition research. Is the behavior evidence of a mind reflecting on itself? Or is it a powerful but unconscious strategy? The honest answer is that scientists are still working it out. And that uncertainty is not failure. It is the frontier. We can study behavior. We can study brains. We can compare nervous systems. We can watch animals solve problems, remember faces, make plans, cooperate, grieve, play, deceive, use tools, and respond to uncertainty. But there is one place we cannot go. Inside. There is a word philosophers use for the private feeling of experience. Qualia. The redness of red. The sting of a paper cut, the taste of cold water when you are thirsty, the feeling of being you, right now, while reading this sentence. You can describe those experiences, but nobody can enter your mind and feel them exactly as you do. So, if we cannot fully access another human being's experience, how could we ever access a dog's, or a dolphin's, or a bat's? In 1974, philosopher Thomas Nagel made this problem famous in an essay with a question that still haunts consciousness research. What is it like to be a bat? Nagel chose bats because their sensory world is so different from ours. Many bats navigate using echolocation, sending out sounds and interpreting the returning echoes. Their world is shaped by information humans do not naturally experience in the same way. Nagel's argument was not that bats have no inner life. It was almost the opposite. If there is something it is like to be a bat, then that experience may be impossible for a human to fully imagine. We can study a bat's brain. We can map its flight. We can record its calls. We can learn how echolocation works. But none of that guarantees we know what it feels like to be inside the bat's world. And if that is true for bats, it may be true for every animal. The dog on the couch may have an inner life, but its inner life may not be made of words. It may be made of smells, sounds, routines, familiar footsteps, body language, warm places to sleep, remembered fear, remembered comfort, and the sudden anticipation of a leash being picked up. It may not think, I am a dog, but perhaps it knows the world in a way that is meaningful from the inside. That possibility is one reason animal consciousness has become a serious scientific question rather than a sentimental fantasy. In 2012, a group of neuroscientists publicly proclaimed the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. The declaration argued that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates associated with consciousness, and it pointed to evidence involving mammals, birds, and other animals. The declaration did not prove that every animal experiences the world exactly as a human does. It did not say that a pigeon has the same consciousness as a person. It did not say that every creature is self-aware in the mirror test sense. What it challenged was the old assumption that consciousness suddenly appears only when a human brain arrives. Evolution rarely works that way. It does not usually build complex traits from nothing in a single leap. It changes old systems. It reshapes them. It adds layers. Eyes became more complex. Limbs changed. Brains changed. Social lives changed. So consciousness may not be a light switch that is either completely off or completely on. It may be more like a landscape. Different animals may experience different parts of it. Some may have rich sensory awareness but little ability to reflect on themselves. Some may remember the past but not imagine a distant future. Some may recognize their bodies but not their faces. Some may feel fear, comfort, attachment, or loss without being able to explain any of it. And then there are moments that make the question feel impossible to dismiss. In 2018, a southern resident killer whale named Tahlequah, also known as J35, gave birth to a calf that died soon after birth. For 17 days, Tahlequah carried her dead calf through the waters of the Pacific Northwest, traveling more than 1,000 miles while the world watched. People called it grief. Scientists were more cautious. They could describe what happened. They could document the length of the journey. They could observe Tahlequah pushing or carrying the calf. They could recognize that mother-calf bonds in killer whales are powerful. But they could not enter Tahlequah's mind. They could not prove exactly what she felt. Maybe that is frustrating. Maybe it is also the point. We demand proof of another animal's grief because we want certainty. We want the animal to say, "I am sad. My baby is gone. I cannot let go." But language is not the only possible shape of loss. A person may cry. An elephant may linger near bones. A whale may carry a calf. A dog may search for someone who is gone. The behaviors are different. The question underneath them may be the same. Is there someone home? And perhaps we have spent too long asking that question in the wrong way. We look for human language, human faces, human mirrors, human gestures, human answers. But other animals did not evolve to become imperfect people. They evolved to become themselves. The dog does not need to pass a chimpanzee's test to have a dog's mind. The bat does not need to explain echolocation to have a bat's experience. The magpie does not need a human-sized brain to notice something strange in a mirror. And a whale does not need to speak our language before we take its bonds seriously. There is one more story that sits at the edge of this mystery. Washoe was a chimpanzee involved in long-running research on communication using signs adapted from American Sign Language. Reports from the project say that she learned many signs and that her adopted son, Lulis, acquired signs through interaction with Washoe and other chimpanzees rather than through direct human sign training alone. The details of animal language studies have been debated for decades. How much did the animals understand? Were they using language in the same way humans do? Could their signs be shaped by training, expectation, and context? Those questions matter. But the larger lesson remains. The closer we look at other animals, the less empty they seem. They solve problems. They form relationships. They remember. They adapt. They communicate. They show fear. They seek safety. Some appear to monitor uncertainty. Some use mirrors in ways that suggest a body-based sense of self. Some display behaviors around death that are difficult to reduce to a simple instinct. And every discovery makes the old wall between us and them feel a little less solid. So, does the dog on the couch know it is alive? Science cannot give us a final yes. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The dog may not have the kind of reflective self-awareness that allows a human to wonder about mortality, identity, or the universe. But the dog may still have a point of view. A world that matters from the inside. A private stream of smells, sounds, memories, comfort, fear, anticipation, and attachment. And if there is something it is like to be that dog, then the dog is not just a machine producing behavior. It is a subject of experience. Maybe that is the most important shift. The question is no longer whether animals are secretly tiny humans. They are not. The question is whether their lives matter to them. And the growing evidence suggests that, in many different ways, they probably do. The dog on the couch may never stare into a mirror and think, "That is me." But when it looks back at you, there may be far more behind those eyes than we once dared to imagine.